So we will now move to Article 11, the capital improvement and debt plan. And is Ms. Hodges going to do that?
Yeah, Kate will take the lead on this, and I will chime in when necessary.
Great. Chris, do you need a second to pull that up?
Oh, I'll pull it up now. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, is it on the screen?
All right, I got it.
I know. There we go.
Great, thank you. So this evening, similar to the general fund budget that was just presented, we've created an abbreviated version of February's larger presentation for you all and the updated version presented at the Finance Committee some weeks back. Because many of the acquisitions and the projects remain relatively unchanged, there didn't seem to be a need to go through all of them in as much detail. Again, however, if there are specific questions relative to any certain project, I do have some supplemental slides on my computer that I can go to and share in an effort to answer any of the project-related questions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the motion has changed initially since proposed and now seeks a sum of $1,081,855 in cash capital, or what we refer to as capital outlay, and it reduces the debt capital request by about $1.5 million. Can I? Nope, you have to do it, Chris, sorry. So here you can see a summary of the adjustments made to the capital outlay plan. So capital outlay is a designation that we use to define projects which are funded within the levy via the general fund. We also refer to these projects as cash capital or the non-borrowing. So this revised submission is in recognition of the impact that the pandemic has had on the community and the town's overall budget projections and the individual department's capacity for projects, given that we won't even be able to undertake any of these until October of this year after our rescheduled town meeting. So overall, the fiscal year capital outlay was decreased by about $705,000, as you can see here. Next slide. On the table, you can see the updated debt plan. The borrowing projects presented at the hearing in February totaled $5,250,000. In that presentation, we actually included the $900,000 for school projects, but since the school committee has been sharing their updated budgets and their line items were removed from this particular update. So backing their requests out, the municipal capital project for borrowing authorization for pre-COVID totaled $4.35 million. As you can see in the red columns, many of the projects have been altered and the requested funding subsequently decreased. So the revised request for fiscal year 21 is now $2,825,000, a decrease of approximately $1.5 million. Next, please. This project, which is the Emerson Playground Improvement, remains for fiscal year 21 as the new playground safety surfacing is required by the Architectural Access Board. This project is $200,000. We had until July 1st of this year to have that done before that went into place, and the legislature has changed it to July 1st of next year, although it is still going to have to be using this year's fiscal year money because we wouldn't have the appropriation ready if we had it at next year's town meeting. Next slide, please. The Rydo Project calls for bathroom reconfiguration and has actually been put on hold for a year. So this amount was actually captured and moved to the fiscal year 22 request in the amount of $195,000. Next. This is the Prawn Dredging Project, and that will remain for the fiscal year 21. This is actually a multi-year project with funding proposed within the town's capital plan this year and in fiscal year 22. The total borrowed amount needed for dredging these two areas that you can see within the red circles equates to about $2 million. So $500,000 will remain for fiscal year 21 and 1.5 million slated for fiscal 22. It's important to note that if the strategic dredging is not completed, boating and other passive recreational activities will be impacted. Sorry, the train is going by and it's quite loud. I can't even put down the window. Okay, next slide, please. The $600,000 request for White Pond improvements remains and relates to accessibility improvements and stormwater management within the White Pond Beach area. This is an updated artistic aerial design of what we're planning. However, we have just begun the process of going through some of the initial permitting. So this is in its very infancy stages. We're starting with stormwater management and hope to have that plan to the NRC sometime in late October. This project was slated to run at the same time concurrently with the Rydo Project and actually has been delayed a year. Next slide, please. Ladder 1 is the 2012 Emergency 110 foot aerial ladder truck, and its refurbishment has been pushed out to fiscal year 22, which is actually their 10-year life expectancy mark. So it remains on a fine schedule. That amount pushed out to 2022 is $250,000. And the $275,000 appropriation for ambulance number 1 that you see here will remain at that level for this year as that is reaching its 10-year life. Next, please. And lastly, the 2020 and 2021 roads program will continue to address the need to bring the average pavement condition index of the town's 107-mile network up. And this amount will be used in conjunction with approximately $670,000 in Chapter 90 state funds. Initially, we requested 1.73 million, but it has been updated to 1.25 million in recognition of the missed paving season that happened the majority of this summer. That is the abridged version of the capital plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Kate. If you have a question for Ms. Hodges, please raise your hand. John?
Hey, quick question on the ambulance replacement cost. I think it was $275,000. Does the old ambulance have any residual value? Is that a net number or is that a gross number?
I believe that's a gross number. And I don't know that okay, in all the ambulances I've been a part of replacing, they don't really do trade-ins. They don't really have a lot of value afterwards. So you have to, and it has to remain in service until you get the new one. So I think we will probably try and dispose of it, but there's not like a trade-in value. It's not how those deals typically work.
Okay, thank you.
Well, sorry, for this one, what actually happens is that they use this as the backup ambulance. So what happens is that every 10 years they do the new one, and then this backup ambulance moves to the backup either for mutual aid, or if in fact we had something catastrophic where we needed an extra one, or if the new ambulance needs to go in for servicing. And then what happens is the old one, which is now going to be upwards of 20 years old, either goes to training or goes for scrap. And we get very minimal, but sometimes a few thousand that then gets put into the training budget.
Okay. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dee?
Thank you. Kate, this question is about the White Pond project. And what I'm wondering is, I believe it was maybe at last week's select board meeting, there were a group of women who got up to talk about the White Pond. Maybe they are the White Pond committee people, about the problems at White Pond. And I was wondering if you could help me better understand the problems that they were talking about, how your plan for the spending of the $600,000 addresses those issues.
Sure. So, Chris, would you mind going back to the map? Because I feel like it might be helpful.
this the, I'm so,
Oop, yep, you were right on it.
yeah.
There you go. So right now, this is sort of what we're proposing. And what you don't see here is the way that the existing conditions are now is that you drive into the small driveway from Plainfield Road and you take a very sharp corner and you go down into where the parking lot is. And in the middle that in this drawing that you see here, there is a bioretention pond, which is essentially a place that was supposed to collect stormwater management. Unfortunately, the road doesn't actually pitch that way. So what has happened is that over time, all kinds of undergrowth and whatnot has grown up there. And so it's actually doing the opposite, which means that any rainwater that does hit it just runs off and down the hill. What also isn't super evident from this picture is that it's about a 58-foot drop from the top of where the parking lot is into the beach area. And so if you're talking about rainwater or anything else, snow, anything of that nature, that's a pretty fast pace that it's coming down. So the debate, and I am not a farmer by any means, but the debate is saying that runoff both from the roadway in the pre-treatment area and also there is an allegation that any type of fertilizer and other things used in the crop fields that are located on the left-hand side or up at the north part here, that including, just regular stormwater and drainage are kind of coming down and basically it's creating a funnel right down the driveway into the pond. There's evidence of certainly that being the pathway that the water wants to run just from the beach washout. And so what we're proposing is this series of sort of switchback left to right ADA accessible pathways, which then would have retaining walls and stormwater detention basins with native plantings that will be able to control both erosion of that and soak up some of the water. And then at the bottom where you can see, I don't know, Chris, could you just point to the bottom where that brown structure is? Okay, now go left a little. Yeah, that's great. And then go left a little and circle that other part right there, circle that circle. So right now there's an existing stormwater catch basin that's there that's really undersized and also hasn't been effectively managed or cleaned out. And so what we're looking to do is to be able to develop another series of catch basins that run alongside, not on the NRC side, but the beach side down, collect the stormwater, send it through an underground infiltration tank, which would be under that pull-off that you can see there that's asphalt, and then connect it to the stormwater management system that's existing there underneath. In addition to that, we're also including this sort of wooden decking. It serves two purposes. One, it's an impervious surface, so it can help us to collect rainwater underneath it. And the other is that it provides ADA access to the water's edge. And so while I don't have the measurements, I believe that what you will see is the cumulative effect of all of these different areas will reduce the amount of runoff that we're getting into the pond.
It will reduce it, but not eliminate it. Is that correct?
Certainly, you can't eliminate rainwater running into the pond ever, particularly because it also falls into the pond when it comes down from the clouds. So we're looking to reduce it by at least 60%, although we suspect it'll be closer to the 75.
Okay, and then also they were talking about working with the state because of the problem associated with the ramp. And I wonder if that's being addressed with part of the $600,000 or in conjunction with the state?
So I just want to be clear, the $600,000 is just one part. This entire project is going to be probably in the area of 1.4, 1.5, which is why I said it was pushed out a year, because we're going to be requesting additional funds next year. So there's no way to get this amount of stormwater management and ADA accessibility done for $600,000. Our thought is that we would get the initial part done, but not have the full walkway or the leaching area that's down at the bottom for about $850,000, which is this 600 plus the amount that is being asked for and recommended from CPC. As far as the boat ramp or the ramp that you're talking, the state owns that, and we have a licensing and use and maintenance agreement with them, but it doesn't give us the ability necessarily to take it on forever. So we have a 99-year lease agreement. They would be happily approve any plan that we give them that makes it better, but they make no financial commitment to help us do that, nor will they relinquish the control of it because as a great pond, they need to retain access for fishermen.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mary,
I have a follow-on question. I'm glad you're talking about White Pond. So the $600,000 that we have this year, you're saying, Kate, would not accomplish all that you need for the stormwater management and the ADA compliance. This year, there's nothing in the CPC article for White Pond. And it looks like you've got some money from prior years. So
Yes, 250.
well, yeah, and then I think last year you got 600,000 from this municipal debt plan as well. So if we approve this year 600,000, you'll have raised 1.6 million from various sources. So will that be enough money to get this work done?
So I think if you recall, we've altered that plan in that the 600 was for park improvements and we had split it when both of those projects were going to happen simultaneously.
And now you transferred that to Giroux.
That's correct.
Got it.
So
Yep.
we have 600 and we took, what you will see is that the debt plan that we asked and presented back in February had an additional 6 for both Giroux and for White. And
Right.
so now this updated one has Giroux zeroed out and it has the other 6 or 5 for White pushed out one fiscal year.
Well, I think also what happened is that last year you had in FY20, we thought we were going to have 600 for Giroux and 600 for White Pond. And we've taken all that and put it into Giroux.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So then you've got 250 from CPC last year and 600,000 this year, hopefully, if this gets approved. So that's 850. Is that
Correct.
enough? Is that
It's
enough?
enough for the stormwater management, which we've understood to be the highest and something that the community wants the most.
Okay.
It will be able to handle 2/3 of the ADA walkway, but it won't have any of the amenities and it won't have the bottom half of the walkway that's able to get down. But there'll be a series of temporary ramps that we will construct to be able to have that, but it won't pass for longer than a year. So we are going to need to come back for an additional either somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000, depending how the bids come in.
When you say amenities, what do you mean by that?
So if you were to look back at the top, I'm sorry, Chris, do you want to bring that back up? So the parking area is going to remain. That's the existing footprint, but we've widened the roadway on both sides to be able to account for both emergency vehicles and traffic, to someone to be able to park and pull off. And then as a condition of the gift, the White Pond Associates, we're looking for an overlook that was going to have a plaque that was dedicated to one of their long-standing members. And so that is sort of that picnic area, picnic grove part that you see immediately, below the parking area. And then we also have another picnic and park area that's going to be up on the top area there with a trail that goes down. Certainly a blaze trail, wooded, nothing super significant, with some handrails that are there. New bike rack, some picnic benches, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of stuff is, we've backburnered that.
Thank you.
thank you, Mary. Are there any other questions from Terry?
Yes, quick question about Emerson Playground. No, I'm sorry, Emerson Field. I remember a while ago it being a $1.5 million project to restore that entire field, and I see it looks like it's been zeroed out. What is the status of that project?
So that project is ongoing and it's being managed by the Park and Tree crew under Aaron McCloskey, who's our Highway and Ground Superintendent. And the reason that was zeroed out this year is because they had planned on beginning that and going to bid this spring. And obviously with what's been going on, that project has been delayed. So there didn't seem to be a whole lot of sense, given that we were trying to prioritize what could be done realistically. So I think that you may see a corresponding request either in FY22 or 23 as they begin to plan for construction, or at least beginning the construction in FY21.
Okay, I'm looking at a chart that you sent me earlier that shows it zeroed out all the way through until FY25, and that's why I'm kind of 24. Excuse me. So you're saying that anyway, it's been put off for this year.
Well, it hasn't been put off. They have a good amount of money that. My understanding, and again, this project was in existence before I actually came to Concord, but my understanding is that the previous DPW director wanted to ask for money over a series of 4 or 5 fiscal years and then wait till he had the full amount and bid the full project. The highway and grounds superintendent has a different philosophy where he'd like to phase it in an, most needed / safety hazard or things that are not compliant, which would be the irrigation and some of the other things there, and then move ahead from there. So he'd like to make some progress with the money that they already have, and then have some bids and try to see what those come in at. Because of course we were using numbers from fiscal year 13, so they're quite old now. And we also have noticed that while baseball was the main focus of that particular area, lacrosse is an up-and-coming sport. And so we're trying to figure out whether having that repointed and repitched as a baseball field makes the most sense, or if we need another multi-purpose or some other type of field. And I think, probably when we get back to whatever the new normal is, we'll be able to better understand that.
Actually, I don't want to cut off questions, but Chris, can you go back to that slide? Because I did want to talk about the changes to the out years, or at least the next few years, in a little more detail. I don't know if it's going to call for the use of the telestrator, but you're using it very well tonight, Chris.
All right. Well,
While he's looking for that, if I could just comment, I really like this new philosophy of working with the money that we already have and doing it in phases. So thank you for doing that.
Chris, that's slide 4. Thank you, Terry, for saying that. Slide 4, Chris. Next one.
thank you.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, I don't want to get too trapped in this, but the short of it is, there are, if you look at the numbers, we certainly deferred some things. Everything on that list is needed. It reduced costs for borrowing. Of course, the cost will be borne by FY22, but it was important to make sure that we look ahead and make sure FY22, see how we are in FY22. It would then potentially drive up, there you go. It would then potentially drive up costs in the FY22 plan, as you can see here, going from 4.8 to 5, almost 5.3, which would mean the FY23 budget's borrowing costs would go up as a result of that. And then it actually goes down a little bit according to this plan FY23. So I think it's important to note in the moving things around as a result of the impacts that we're feeling now. There will be downstream impacts, of course, but I just want to make sure that, sometimes things get kind of locked. They get presented like this, and then it's like, well, you said it was going to be here and it's not. And so now it doesn't seem like it's legitimate. But the reality is, especially now, circumstances have shifted quite a bit. And so our hope is to be able to do the FY22 plan and present that to you actually in a couple of months. And really be able to say, we think we're through the worst of it. We're going to go forward with the plan as we have it here, but it may be that some of those things have to get deferred as well. So I just want everyone to be mindful about when the decision gets made to defer something, and then when the financial impact of all that is, and that these columns here, in part because of every year capital plans change because of conditions in the field, as a bidding climate or whatever, add a major new variable to that, and things, we just have to be kind of patient and nimble with how these things are going to potentially change. So, all right, you can close it, Chris. That's all I wanted to know.
Right. Are there any additional questions from the select board or the Susan? Unmute yourself.
Could you go back to that slide for just a moment, please? The one that was just up. Something jumped out at me that I'm familiar with all of the items except the Emerson Home/Museum, which doesn't pertain to FY21. It's for FY22. But what is that?
So that has to do with the lots that were being sold over by the Concord Museum, and that actually came up. I'm going to have to pull the warrants, but I know that it came up last year and the year before, and it's sort of a systematic purchasing. So we're trying to put away money, not every year, but for the acquisition as those become available. They immediately abut the Emerson Thoreau Amble, and it actually ends up being a continuation over to where the ice house is. And so what will happen is that there's a bunch of different plots there, and I think it's subdivided into 4 or 5 plots. And so the town would like to purchase those. And one of them also immediately abuts the affordable area that's right there near the ice house. And so I think there was thought of extending that and doing another duplex there. And so this is just a placeholder there to fulfill that goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any more hands from the select board or the finance committee, so I will open it up to the audience. And I have one question. So Chris, could you turn on Diane Proctor's video? She has a question.
Yep.
Oops, unmute.
All right, Diane, please go ahead.
Sorry, Mike, I'm suddenly been kicked off the Zoom, but I'm sure I'll get back. My question is that I see that, thank you very much. I see that you have.
Just for the record, Diane.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane Proctor, 57 Sudbury Road. I apologize. I see that you put aside some money for the Emerson parking lot. I wonder if there is an existing plan, what that plan might be, and how abutters and citizens can be appraised of what that's going to cost and what the impact will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to answer that, Stephen, or did you want to?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. So when Emerson Umbrella was renovating, one of the things that they had worked on with the former CPW director and prior town manager was the idea of expanding the parking lot a bit to increase the number of spaces that were there. And as you know, that's shared with also the library. And so my understanding is that the Emerson Umbrella architect worked with the town's engineers to come up with some idea where they could elongate and kind of get rid of a little bit of the buffer that's on that southern end of the parking lot there, but only compact cars were going to be able to fit in there. And the former town manager didn't feel like that was really representative of what they were looking for. So the project was ultimately put on hold. So what has now happened is that I think people are starting to ask about it because it's been a number of years. And so the town's engineering staff, actually, we just had a meeting about a week and a half ago to try to understand where that was. And they're going to try to put it back where it's just a resurfacing. And of course, whenever they do that, they would have to notify the abutters and people would be able to come out. But they're still not entirely clear on how much, if anything, they're going to put into the buffer zone because, and I'm sure you recall through Emerson Umbrella's renovation projects, people were very committed and very attached to that vegetative buffer. And I don't think that Public Works is looking to destroy that, particularly because they just replanted all of that. And so I think what you might see is just some curb cutting, some mill and overlay, and maybe some one-way directionals that are going there. But that would be for fiscal year 23 as it is right now. done at the same time as the Harvey Wheeler parking lot. So those projects are tied together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, the other big thing was that was in the plan pre-COVID-19, and that was one of the projects that has definitely slid as a result. So that's why we don't really have a more specific plan than that.
Right, thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions from the audience. So with that, we will move on to the next article.